This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, the real important issue. You know how to turn this bitch Siri off?
No, I don't have an Apple Watch purposely for that purpose. I do not want to have to worry about my conversations being tapped into and Siri saying, "Hey, pop it in" when I'm talking to somebody. So I have AirPods and I have an iPhone, but that's the furthest I'll go with Apple.
There's got to be a way to turn her off, right? I mean, it's got to be a way.
No, she's like, you remember the show? I don't know if you watched the kids shows. I'm younger, but there's a show called Smart House. There was a movie called Smart House. I think it was on Disney back in the day, where they won a house that had smart devices. Like, you talk to them. It's like a Siri type product before Siri. And so you could say, "Hey, make a milkshake for me. Get my clothes ready. Make dinner." And the house did it for them. And so they won this house.
That called The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody?
No, that's called Smart House. It's called
okay. All right, just
Smart
checking.
House. It was a movie. And so they had this house and they loved it at first. And then she started to turn on them because she started to learn their tendencies and tried to be the mom of the household and tell them how to do this and tell them how to do that. And they would try to shut her off and they couldn't. And so the whole premise of the movie is essentially what you're dealing with in a bigger route with your Apple Watch and Siri.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
it's probably, I think it's probably a early 2000s movie, sort of a kids movie, but I think that you would, you get a kick out of it given some of your issues with the Apple Watch.
Yeah, I guess that's right when my daughter was born in 99.
Okay.
So that's probably why I don't know that one, because, I need a few more years until she started watching.
She wouldn't. Yeah. It was probably a show for like preteens to teenagers around that time, which I was at that point.
Right. Yeah, you got to talk to me about Recess Out and Ruby and Recess Out, schools, whatever that.
Oh yeah, Recess, School's Out.
Yeah, that's it. My daughter used to watch all that crap.
Absolutely.
Ruby,
1999 movie,
really,
so it literally
really boring shit.
Yeah.
Some Ruby something. It was two like rabbits or something, like really bad. It was boring.
Yeah.
But she watched all kinds of shows like that, but I don't remember that one.
It was a movie. It's 1999. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how it carries. I can't tell you I won't recommend it because it might not be good at all now, 25 years later, given the technology we have. But back then it kind of seemed futuristic and it was an interesting look at technology.
By the way, this is an interesting nugget, which I have no idea about your movie, but Man of 1,005 Holds has an idea about your movie. Did you know that Katie Seagal was the voice of the house?
I didn't know that offhand, but now that I think about it, it makes sense.
Do you know who Katie Seagal is?
Yes, I am familiar with her.
Okay. All right. How about that?
Yeah.
So she goes from that to Sons of Anarchy. That's and Married with Children. That's a hell of an extreme.
Hey, you got range. She has range.
Yeah. Well, you're a house, so it's all right. Was there a scar anywhere in the house?
No, but the house became a real woman at some point.
Okay, no, because if it was a scar, then you would know it was Katie Seagal because she has that scar on her chest.
I saw Sons of Anarchy. Great show.
Oh, it was a great show. Hated the ending, but it was, and I hated that Opie died.
Oh man,
that's one of my all-time disappointments in TV history.
But that's what made the show so great, is that it was never predictable. Like a lot of these shows, you knew, okay, the main character is going to win. It's, they're going to go through these trials and tribulations, but eventually they're going to figure it out. Well, no, Sons of Anarchy did not work that way. The good guys often lost, and then we saw what happened in the end. It wasn't a happy ending.
I mean, he's so ruthless, the writer, that he made himself a bad guy that got jailed and then was getting sodomized in jail.
Yeah.
That's how twisted the
was
writer
ruthless.
of the show. He didn't write himself into a role that was, great or anything.
Yeah, like he's not hooking up with the women or anything like that. No, he's getting It was rough. It was rough. And I see somebody in the comments talking about no spoilers. It's been 10 years almost since this show has come out. That's enough time. Like that's one of my pet peeves that people talk about spoilers. If you've given somebody multiple years to watch a show, there's no such thing as spoilers.
Yeah. It's over a decade old, bro. Relax. If you haven't watched it from now, I'm sorry.
You were going to watch it.
By the way, just so you'll know, he kills himself at the end with a motorcycle running into a truck. There you go. You want the ultimate spoiler? Right there, baby. Okay, right. So there you go. Lead actor right into a truck and a motorcycle, hands out, and just like, here we go. I'm done.
See, I didn't go that far. I didn't tell them the whole ending. I just,
I am, because if you want to think that you're gonna really like make me feel bad on something that's older, almost as old as my daughter. Right. I mean, come on, bro. Enough already,
Yeah, if this is a movie that came out last month, I'll give you that. Sometimes it takes, but multiple years, that's almost 10 years ago, decade show, and it's literally readily available on pretty much anything you can try to stream.
Well, let's not tell them who shot JR in Dallas. Okay, let's not do that. I mean, they might just want to watch it now, 45 years later.
How did Titanic end? Do we want to spoil that?
It was a sinking feeling. Let's just say that. Okay.
My bad too. At time I wasn't trying to make fun of you. It's just something that popped up that people say to me all the time when I mention this. Spoilers. I'm like, come on, man.
Stranger Things. Don't tell me. Okay, I get it, bro. Stranger Things has just happened. It's still, okay. Sons of Anarchy. Come on, bro. I put out a poll. Although Twitter only gives me 4 options because I know the jokers would have loved the 5th option. Will the Dolphins go 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, or 1-3? The jokers are like, where's the 0-4? Which I get it. But Twitter only gives you 4 options. So I use those 4 options because I really don't believe they're going to go 0-4 at all, actually. But what do you think they do in the next 4 games?
That would be bad.
Yeah, that would be very Ryan Tannehill-ish, by the way, which I don't think Tua wants to be associated with that.
Right.
What do you think they do?
If I had to be pegged down on one, I would probably say 2-2.
Okay.
I'd probably say 2-2, not predicting anything, but if I had to guess, maybe they lose this week in Buffalo. That's a tough game in the cold. Their offense has not been on track, and they get right on Christmas Day against maybe Jordan Love's Packers, who knows? And then I think they split the 2 games against division opponents, and I think they make it into the playoffs. That would be my guess and how it goes.
Well, 2-2 sounds pretty realistic for the
10-7. You make it in as the last wild card spot, probably. Maybe the 6th one. Who knows?
Yeah. Your thoughts on what's gone on the last 2 weeks, because that has been like a brutal choke job here in the last 2 weeks for the offense. And I didn't blame McDaniel in the San Fran game because I thought he schemed it beautifully. Guys were open. Tua was just completely off. This week, I give McDaniel also a lot of blame along with Tua. And with what went on. So what the hell in your eyes is going on with those guys in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, not often I fully agree with you, but I think that there's a lot of truth there. I think the biggest thing I noticed is that Tua does not look as comfortable as he did before. And so you can pick your reasons. Maybe it's just Tua being off. Maybe it's defenses adjusting to him. Maybe it's a combination of all of them. But I did think what was alarming to me, this game was more alarming to me than the San Fran game because of what you just mentioned. The San Fran game, Tua just missed throws. Guys were open. Maybe not as open as they'd always been, but they were still open.
Oh, they were open.
And he was missing throws, like he knew where to go. Everything was flowing. He just was missing it. The accuracy was off. This game, the windows were very narrow. And so guys were not getting open as much. They literally got out schemed. This is one of the first times this year where I think the defense coordinator, in this case, Brandon Staley, out schemed Mike McDaniel. and that they were doing something really interesting, which is opposite of what most teams do. They played press man coverage in the early downs, first and second down, pretty often. And then they dropped into zone coverage, particularly in the middle of the field on third down. And so teams usually play man on third down, zone, and early. And so it's a big risk because, as you saw in the Tyreek Hill touchdown, you can get beat deep. But they were saying, hey, we might get beat anyway with these guys, so we'd rather disrupt their timing. And that's the thing that we've discussed here before. This is a timing-based offense. And so if you get the timing off, if you hop in a open middle window and Tua has to double clutch because what he thought was going to be there is not there, then you start getting people uncomfortable. And then you start getting people with their confidence is like, well, this had always worked. Why isn't it working anymore? And then you start to see some of the happy feet that we saw that Tua was having and moving too much in the pocket. And some of his mechanics seem to go off and off. And so, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for Dolphins fans. I'm a little concerned. Because one time, hey, maybe it's just a fluke. 2 times in a row against a Chargers defense that was in the bottom 5 that didn't have Derwin James, that's a little bit more concerning. And so this week is going to be really interesting. Short week, coming off a West Coast trip, not a lot of time, but this is a time where you see McDaniel's chops, in adversity. What can he do to get Tua back comfortable? What can he do to adjust the offense and get Tua out of his funk? Tua's had a great year so far, but he's in a 2-game funk. What can you do as a coach? Because your job is to help him in that area to get him out of that. And so I don't think it's going to happen immediately, but I do want to see some progress against Buffalo for them to continue this run, because now it's transitioned from can they win the AFC East to are we sure they're going to make the playoffs? And that area is a little concerning.
All right. So were you surprised that Tua kept forcing it early on to Tyreek, even though he was covered heavily by a whole bunch of guys?
Yeah.
And that he's not spreading it around. And then not just Tua, but then I got to blame McDaniel too, because he's not forcing his quarterback to spread it around. And, McDaniel, that's his job, to get Waddle involved more, to get Cedric Wilson involved more, get Trent Sherfield involved more. Look, I get it that Gesicki doesn't fit your offense or whatever, but the other receivers, at least, you got to be able to get involved. And hell, you know what? If you can get Gesicki involved, he's a big ass target and make it a life easier for Tua. I just didn't see enough variety there. Were you shocked at Tua forcing the issue a little too much?
I don't know if I was fully shocked, because the reality is when you have Tyreek Hill, you're going to force some things to Tyreek. It's the whole adage, like Tua said early in the season, if Tyreek is 1-on-1, I'm going to throw it to it. Now, he was 2-on-1.
3-on-1.
I was about to say he was 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 and sometimes, but like when you have one of those dudes, you're going to force throws you won't throw to anything else. But what I will say is, and this is like Tua was not great the last 2 games, so this is not absolving Tua at all. But I was watching the game, I was actually surprised at how some of the other receivers played. Like, this was not a good game for Jalen Waddle. Let's just call it what it is.
Listen, he has a brain fart almost every game.
And so Jalen's an awesome receiver. I think he's a true number 1. But I think that he struggled to get open sometimes. Jalen's one of those guys where, like you said, if he doesn't get the ball early or if his team needs a play, he can press a little bit and maybe take on more than what his role is. And so not putting all of it on him, but that was a guy that, you mentioned, Tyreek's blanketed. That's why you have Jalen, because ideally he's the other guy. And he was very quiet. Like the whole first half, I don't think he had a catch. And I don't think that was all Tua missing it. I think some of that was Jalen Waddle not maximizing it. So,
Sherfield also,
like Tyree said, guys can have off games. Jalen Waddle has not had many off games this year, but this one to me was an off game for him. It was an off game for Tua. It was an off game for a lot of guys on that offense. Like, as much as we praised the offensive line for getting better, they took a step back this past game. And Teron's clearly not 100%, but as we've talked about here, if you want him to play, you're going to have to take maybe not being 100% with him out.
He still did a serviceable job.
I watched. He did. He would have been
he's
definitely better than whatever option they would have had out there to replace him. Much better. Just being real. Just calling it what it is. And so that was a part of it. And the reality of it, I wasn't a big fan of the comparing Herbert and Tua, but Herbert obviously was the best player on the field that day, and they just couldn't handle what Herbert did was what Tua did not do. And it's interesting because what Tua got criticized for previously, Herbert took a lot of the check downs and the short routes and the underneath routes. He didn't get obsessed with forcing it downfield.
That's every week. That's every week.
And to be honest, that's fine. That is fine. Like if that's what you need to do to win,
Brady,
that is fine.
Montana, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, they all did it, dude. They all did it. Give me a break. Come on. They all did it.
Yeah.
And Miami kept throwing chunk plays. And it's like, yo, come on, bro. I don't what did you took your Viagra? You got to show you got a hard one here. What's the deal? Just keep it low, man. Let's go. Hit the short ones. That's why I said get Trent Sherfield involved. Get Cedric involved.
Yep.
Get the other guys involved. Move the damn chains. Throw to the running backs. You know, I was really disappointed that there wasn't enough of an adjustment from Tua and especially from McDaniel. Like this game here was an indictment on McDaniel. Last week, I thought McDaniel did an awesome job, actually, of designing the offense perfectly against San Francisco. Tua was just off. This week, Tua was off and McDaniel was off. And I thought that's really what disappointed me there.
Yeah, it's interesting balance. I do think that Mike McDaniel called a better game this week, and he'd admit that it wasn't his best game. But that being said, like I don't want to overreact to one game, although it is 2 in a row for the offense. Right. 1 for the scheme, 2 for Tua in the offense. And so that trend is troubling. The being out scheme thing does not stress me yet. What does worry me is 2 things. One, the run game, we saw a spurt of it. And the last couple of weeks has been dead again. And I mentioned this on NFL Network a few weeks ago. This team can be really dangerous if they become balanced because we know how explosive they can be in the passing game. But if you become balanced, then that's when you become an elite offense. And they are not balanced. Like they've tried to run the ball, but they're running into brick walls. And so that's where the O-line really struggled as a run blocking group. The running backs didn't do a ton of either. And then when Jeff Wilson got hurt, it was completely dissipated. And so that concerns me. And the second element, you mentioned just sort of the short passing game. Interesting enough, this offense has transitioned to big chunk plays really being the heart of the offense. Like they haven't consistently throughout the season marched down the field. They've done it a few times. Like, don't get me wrong. They've done it a few times, but haven't consistently time and time again, not drive after drive. We saw spurts of it early in the season. And then since then it's been, okay, they'll start off slow and then big throw to Tyreek, big throw to Jalen, and they'll score. And so it's like I said, it's a weird balance because last year they got criticized because it's check down, check down, check down. And now you got ideally what you want in the deep ball. And like anything in life, it's a little bit more of a balance. You have to, when teams say, hey, we're not going to let you beat us deep, which is hard. It's hard to do that with those receivers. But when you're not going to let them, you got to have a game like Herbert did, where you're throwing it to your running back, you're throwing it to your tight ends, you're throwing it to your slot receivers and making plays like that. I mean, both Tyreek and Jalen can play out of the slot. They don't have to run intermediate and deep routes only. And so I'd imagine that you see a little bit more of that adjustment from McDaniel going forward.
All right, let's have fun with 2 questions.
Yeah.
Okay. 1, they're 8-5. You know, again, being old, you get perspective. And with Marino, there were a lot of games, not just one. There were a lot of games in his career where he went 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, but they lost 34-32. 400 yards, but the other quarterback threw for 425, and they lost 41-37.
Right.
And it's a game where you said, dude, Marino kicked ass today, but bro, the defense was brutal.
Yep.
And they lost the game. So this defense, because I'm trying to eradicate this scourge that's out there, because they want to fire Josh Boyer. They think the defense is underperforming. First of all, they're so injury riddled that if you expected them to be a great defense, you're actually out of your mind because they can't be a great defense. Maybe they can be average. They bend. They don't necessarily break a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Can you name one game out of the 5 losses that you say, damn, the offense played awesome, but the defense gave the game away? Did that happen once at all this year?
No, because what we think that the 3-game losing streak was with Skyler and Teddy, and they did not play good offensive ball in any of those games.
They kept them in games. Even the Jet game.
Yep.
The Jet game was deceiving because of all the turnovers in the short fields at the end that just, gave them the easy scores at the end. And then
that is true, but I will say there have been games this year where the offense has bailed the defense out, where they would have lost that game, huh?
They're supposed to.
I mean, I think each other is supposed to balance each other out, right?
No, not anymore. No. Listen, dude.
That's complementary football. Complementary football is when the offense has an off day, the defense steps up, and vice versa.
I'll give you all of that.
Right.
If you give me Brandon Jones, Byron Jones,
absolutely,
Nick Needham, give me Trill Williams for my 4th corner, and then I can use all the other guys we have now as 5th and 6th, and all. And if I have Cater and Trill, oh my God!
Right, but here's
now we can play complementary defense,
and so here's where we've had this conversation before. I know the injuries are a big part of this, but I really, really do not like that as an excuse, because the reality is every team in the league has some level of injury, some more than others.
Reality.
But you cannot tell me that the Dolphins they're cursed. They have the most injuries than anyone. It's debilitating. No, they are just like every other team where injuries have impacted their defense. Yes, they have. It's impacted their defense. Secondary? And so they have to adjust. We talked about this at the
entire secondary, bro.
I understand. I'm not saying what you're saying does not have validity. It cannot be an excuse though. Like they haven't had Byron Jones all season. So we can't still in week 15 bring up Byron Jones as the reason why the defense is not playing well. Oh, well, Byron Jones, he hasn't been here. Like, you've prepped pretty much the whole season without him, and you've had a pleasant surprise in Cater Kohu, who stepped up in that role and played roughly about as good as I think Byron Jones might have played, to be frank. Like, and so yes, Brandon Jones a big loss, but Brandon Jones is not Ed Reed. Like, let's just keep it 100. Like, Brandon Jones should not be the reason. Losing Brandon Jones and Nick Needham should not be the reason that your defense craters. That's just my view. That's just my view.
Oh, Byron has more experience than Cater too. So I don't know, man.
But I would say, based on the play, Cater is playing at a level that Byron Jones had been playing on the previous 2 years. That that doesn't account for Byron's leadership, Byron's knowledge of the defense, and maybe the communication. But as far as level, like, I think Cater has been playing starting caliber ball to the point where I would feel comfortable with him as my starting cornerback going into next season.
To me, you can't run your defense without the guys that you have. That's why you've changed it up and you're playing zone at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you had your other guys, you would have never played zone. We would have had the amoeba defense show up a couple times this year already. They would have even blitzed a lot more than they. I know this week they blitzed a lot, but normally they've been holding back and not blitzing as much, because they don't have that secondary. So if they had that secondary, then they could play a little bit more like they normally could. But now they can't, actually, unfortunately. And by the way, Chubb has not really been, this week it was Wilkins, Phillips, and Cater were the guys that were like all over the damn place.
Yeah, Wilkins had a great game. Phillips flashed a lot too. He's going to be a good player. I think Chubb will be fine. But he has not made the first round impact so far. But it's tough joining a team mid-season. I think that move is much for this season.
The way Wilkins and Phillips are playing, you should play better.
True. True. I'm not absolving Brandon Jones at all. I'm just saying the reality of the situation. If we're going to use injuries as an excuse, I guess we could have used that a guy showing up to a new team and a new scheme in the middle of the season does have some impact on his play as well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but end and corner, it's not like linebacker. It's not like safety. They're, you're kind of an island guy almost, an end and a corner. It's kind of basic. Hold the point, rush the pass, rush the passer. It's not really that complicated for certain positions on that on defense. And end and corner would be, I think those are the easier ones to adjust to out of all the positions on defense. Would you agree?
Maybe. But my thing is, I think football is a little bit more complex than people give it credit for. And the Dolphins do ask their ends to do more than just see ball, get ball. There's a lot of defenses where your edge rusher is just see ball, get ball. And yeah, that's different. But this one is not quite the same. They asked their end to do a little bit more. If you remember, Jalen Phillips struggled to be on the field for 3 downs as a rookie because he had to fully learn the defense and learn his responsibilities and master that. And so, Bradley Chubb's coming from a different style of defense. That's all I would say.
And Rosendo says Greer should have traded X last season. I don't want to hear that shit, Rosendo. None of you can say X should have been traded. Not one goddamn one of you out there should say it, okay? Because all I heard was shit 18 months ago when I said to trade X. You none of you get that opportunity anymore. None, okay? I'm the only one that can say it because I'm the only one that had the balls to say it, okay? You had to get off the gravy train at the right time. It's too late now, unfortunately. So
I knew you were going to come back. I knew you were going to come back with this.
I saw that, and I don't want to hear anybody say that. By the way,
I think it may not be this season, but I think they'll be fine with X. I think.
Yeah. Don't let him go. This year will be Byron. Next year will be X.
I think that X will have.
This year, Cater comes back. He'll take Byron's spot, and then you'll get Needham back, and you'll get Trill back for more depth. And then the following year, you'll probably draft another guy, and then the following year, you'll probably part ways with X.
I think you're underestimating what X is playing through this year. I think he'll be fine.
Well, that's been part of his career, also, my man. Injuries.
But he's not sitting these games out, though. He's playing through them.
No, I give him credit, but
his career has been knee stuff that has kept him out. Mm-hmm. This one is a nagging injury that's impacting his play that he's playing through.
No,
but that being said, you're out there. You're accountable for your play. You're out there. You're accountable for your play. But I'm just saying, I do not think this is, X has not had a great season. We were wrong on paying him, and let's cut him as soon as we get the chance. That's just not my view.
Oh, no, but my view was injury, off the field.
I remember.
Money constantly, all those things that have been coming up. And guess what? We got another injury again. So whether it was knee or this or whatever, I don't care, bro. The bottom line is there's always something with him. And that's kind of why I said, get off the gravy train. You got the 10 interceptions, go get multiple picks. And by the way, after what the owners did, boy, a trade would have brought you a whole bunch of other picks that you could make up for the 2 picks that you lost. All right, one more thing before I let you go to have a little fun with this.
Yep.
Justin Herbert played really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of praise. No doubt about it. He played well, made some really nice throws.
Right.
What happens if the Dolphins get lucky and score a touchdown and it's 24-23? Is the night looked at the same for him? 370 yards and 1 touchdown? Because he threw as many touchdowns as Tua.
Yeah, so, I mean, Dolphins.
The narrative is beautiful, and he made a whole bunch of really nice throws. He does this all the time, by the way. I watch all the Chargers games. What he did, he does this all the time. He has a great arm. He has great athleticism. But he produced 1 touchdown, bro. 1 touchdown and 370 yards. Okay? And I get it. He outplayed Tua by miles. Tua choked like a dog the last 2 weeks. I can't defend Tua for anything the last 2 weeks. But if they lose 24-23, I'm just saying, I just feel like the narrative would have changed around and people would have said, well, yeah, he put up, but dude, he only got 1 touchdown with 370 yards. They settled for too many field goals. Because that's been a problem here in Miami for many years with different quarterbacks, that they can't finish drives, that they have to settle for field goals.
Right.
That wasn't a narrative that night because they won by 6 against a really poor playing offense for the Dolphins. So what happens if that game ends 24-23?
I think that the narrative probably is that Herbert did enough to win and the defense let him down. That would have been probably the narrative. Or the bad luck Chargers. Here's the thing about the Chargers, and we were talking about this just kind of briefly.
If it's 24-23 and Tua loses and he throws 370 and 1 touchdown and they settle for several field goals because they couldn't close the door, would the narrative be the same?
Probably not. Probably not. Okay. Just given the way it is, it's probably, Tua needed more touchdowns instead of field goals. I think the thing about the Dolphins offense and the Chargers offense, and I will say that is different, is that because of the way their offense is set up, especially with their offensive line, they have less of an ability to make those deep strikes that the Dolphins have. And so for better or for worse, it's hard for them to blow out teams or put up 35 points, whereas the Dolphins have shown a propensity to do that when they're on.
Yeah, but you're in the red zone, Cam. You settled for field goals.
There's no deep. I'm not saying there. I'm just telling you the styles of the offense.
What you just said has nothing to do with what happened that night. That night they got into the red zone several times, and only one time they scored a touchdown. Every other time they had to settle for a field goal. And in fact, there was another time where the defense stopped them on 4 downs and they turned over the ball to Miami inside the 5. Right? Didn't Miami start the drive inside the 5 or something like that? Because they had
one of the first drives, they went for it on 4th down and they got stuffed.
Right, exactly. So I'm just saying it's interesting. I'm not telling anybody out there that he didn't play well. He played incredibly well. He threw the ball really, really well. But for 370 yards, not impressed for a touchdown. I'm just not.
All right, maybe that's you. I was impressed with Justin Herbert.
I'll put it this way. If Josh Allen throws for 370 yards on Saturday night, how much money you want to bet he's going to throw for a lot more than 1 touchdown?
Hey, we could play the game all they want, but I would say that Justin Herbert was very impressive to me last Sunday night.
He was impressive. A lot of impressive throws. The production overall for 370 yards, I can't say I'm that impressed because I know that you would have been killed here in Miami if you only closed the deal on 1 and you barely beat a team that played absolutely horrible that night. But it is what it is. What do you got going on in the NFL Network?
I will be on TV and up at the Dolphins facility on Wednesday and Thursday, talking a little Dolphins, Bills, and maybe a couple other games. I had a Saturday's game, so that'll be my week, and I am not going to Buffalo. I actually thought I was going to be, but no cold weather for me. I'm actually in Houston, oddly enough, this week. The Chiefs are playing the Texans, and so
really they sent you to the tornado state. They really don't. They really don't like you. That's
I went to school there, so I get to see some friends and family while I'm there. So it works out. Although I am going to be bummed to miss the Bills Dolphins game because I do think it's going to be a good one. I am not going to be bummed to miss the snow though. So
no. Go to Astro World and have some fun.
It's not there.
Oh, it's not there anymore. I guess you can. I'm sorry, but the Texas tornado was a good wooden roller coaster. I gotta say, I rode it as a kid back in the day. Okay, when there was no, what is it, Reliant Stadium? I think it's called. Is it still called Reliant?
NRG. It's NRG now.
Oh, NRG. I'm sorry.
It was Reliant though. Yep.
It is amazing how it dwarfs the Superdome next to it. Like it dwarfs it, dude. And when we were kids, that was called the 8th wonder of the world.
Really?
Yeah. That was the nickname of the Superdome.
Mm-hmm.
The 8th wonder of the world.
Oh.
Yeah. You live there?
Yeah, I went to college there.
You didn't know that? Well, you went to college. That's years after. Yeah, that's not
you see something. Andre Ware,
oh, nice.
Fine Hellman here for the Heisman.
Nice. He's a good dude, by the way. Andre Ware. Good dude. Put up a lot of stats there, bro. Big time. All right, follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe and catch his work there at the NFL Network. And, of course, follow him in the Tornado State throughout the week. All right, Cam, you be good out there.
Have a good one, though.
You got it. There we go. The Wolf Pack has been unleashed.
This is the Big O Show.